Good morning. Happy Friday, northern Minnesota. Looking foggy. 8:26. Dense fog this morning. Or dentist fog.
True.
Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning.
How's your ride in this morning?
Visibility was about a quarter of a mile.
Is it a law you have to have your headlights on?
Yes.
Oh.
Yep. If it's inclement weather, turn your headlights on.
Can you get pulled over for too fast for conditions on a foggy day?
Ooh, that's going to be pretty subjective.
As a lawman, you don't really like subjective rules, do
No.
you?
If you were speeding on a nice, bright, sunny day, say, and you're doing maybe 10 over, you might get a warning. If you're doing 10 over on a foggy morning, you're probably getting a ticket.
Understandable.
Yeah.
And, you're only, making up a minute or two.
Yeah. It's not worth it. Totally not worth it. On the way in here, I would have caused an accident had I went after this person, but they went through a red light just south of town here, and I'm like, any other day of the week, I would have went after that person, but.
So the fact you were coming here saved someone a ticket.
Yep.
Just looking out for the listeners.
Things
Yep.
the sheriff does. You guys have, I forget what the heck it's called. Got a deal in Kelliher
Oh, the Winter Festival.
tomorrow.
Yes. Yep. Winter Festival.
Right? What's all happening?
Well, it is my understanding we will have folks there through towards Zero Death, and our community resource deputy will be there. But our public health, along with our county highway, kind of went through the process of getting something together outside of the Bemidji area to draw in a crowd of people to hopefully, it's, I don't know all of the different groups that are going to be there, but there's I want to say there's 50 some organizations that'll have tables set up there. Don't quote me on that number. But
And nobody's selling anything.
nobody's selling anything. Exactly. This is all just to draw people in. I know somebody told me that they were cooking bison.
Oh, right.
There's going to be, all kinds of folks there, just to get together. There's going to be some basketball, my understanding. So, you can play basketball, not just watch basketball. We could probably do either or, but
Great.
bring in the kids. It's open to everybody.
That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
What, at Kelliher High School?
Yes.
Yep.
You
For
guys
more
are-
details, you can check out the program on our county website.
And your Facebook page has it. That's right.
What's it called?
Okay. Winter Festival.
Kelliher
Yes.
Sure.
Festival. What were we going to ask Sheriff this week?
I came back from the Capitol.
I don't remember.
Yes.
Did you go to Bemidji Day at the Capitol?
We had the Minnesota
County day before that?
the Minnesota Sheriff's Day at the Capitol, the same day as Association of Minnesota Counties. I did speak with Commissioner Sumner down there, who was down attending that. We had approximately 70 of the 87 sheriffs at the Capitol. We got to talk to lawmakers, and we presented a couple of public safety bills in the House that day.
Are you going to try to get them to not make it illegal for an off-duty cop to have too many rounds in his magazine?
What was that all about?
Well, okay, so there is some I think too many people are trying to lead by emotion here. And some of the bills that we've seen that are starting to come through are done just that way. And granted, they're based off of tragedies.
They mean well.
Yes, they do. There's tragedies that occur but you can't legislate law in St. Paul for everybody in the state of Minnesota. You just can't do it. It's a different kind of animal down there. One of the laws that they were looking at was taking law enforcement's ability to have pepper spray, tasers, batons, flexible baton rounds, tear gas. And we're like, whoa, wait a minute here. Do you want us to just have guns? So that's the only option we have? That doesn't make any sense. It's those tools that we use are made to de-escalate tense situations. We have saved countless lives every day in this country with those tools. The taser, pepper spray, baton, flexible baton rounds. That's like the less lethal impact rounds that you hear of. We have parameters that we have to, we don't just get to just use those things. There are things that happen in a sequence where those are authorized uses of force, and those are to de-escalate a situation versus escalate, right? If you take away all of the abilities that we have with the exception of a firearm, you're basically relegating us to use that firearm at some point. And I think a lot more people would be affected by that. Families. And
your belt would be a lot lighter, but
that would be true. That would be true.
Who thought that was a good idea?
Well, I'm not going to get into the weeds on the politics side of it, but I'm a very centric individual when it comes to a lot of things, and that's you have to have good leadership on both ends, on both sides of the aisle. And I think as a country, there are people that have polarized politics, right? And social media has
been the leading candidate.
Been the leading candidate on this, and media as well. But social media primarily because everybody is on it. Everybody has a phone, and if you start looking at certain things that you align with, it starts pulling you one way or the other, left or right. It doesn't matter which side you are. And oftentimes you find yourself looking at stuff like you had good intentions when you went on there, and then the next thing you know, you're looking at something. You're like, why am I looking at this?
Algorithm.
Yes.
Did you see there's a couple of countries, handful, I can't list them, but they're trying to pass laws that minors can't be on social media?
Good luck enforcing that.
There is legislation this year. It doesn't really affect my profession all that much, but, well, it probably does in the back end. I heard that they were trying to introduce legislation again this year where kids cannot have their phones in class. They can't use their phones. After a certain age, you can't be on your phone during class, and you can't have a phone.
Well, a lot of districts have that policy already.
Yes, and I actually saw some test scores out of Illinois where an inner city school in Chicago actually just exploded off the charts with their educational I don't know what you want to call it, but their abilities went through the roof after they got after the district made a decision and got rid of cell phones. And one of the biggest things that we see as lawmen and lawwomen in the state is we'll go to a house and a child is acting out, and we're like, what? And they're like, what can we do? And I'm like, well, did you take away the phone? Well, we can't do that.
Yeah, you can.
What do you mean you can't do that? You're the parent. Take away the phone. I didn't.
I'm betting you're paying for it.
Or the Xbox.
Yes. I did not have a cell phone when I was a kid. I know neither of you two did because they weren't in existence when we were in high school.
True.
And we made it just fine.
We did.
Oh, yeah. And stayed in line because we didn't want to lose the car.
Exactly.
True.
My kids got a phone when they started driving. And that phone could do one thing. Call. Wasn't a social media platformed phone. It's if you have an emergency and you need to call, you have a cell phone to do that. I'm not saying that works for everybody. I understand that there are circumstances out there, but
it helps when you come home with a badge.
Or not.
Rule with an iron fist.
Yes. You guys have a gun range that you train and everything to make sure that you can shoot when and if you ever have to. What sorts of training do you guys have on tasers and all those other things that you mentioned?
Yeah, the Minnesota Post Board requires us annually to cover all of those aspects. So we have several hours of use of force, and there's classroom portions that we do online through the League of Minnesota Cities. It's called Patrol Online. And we get about 4 or 5 hours of use of force training prior to actually even going to the range, prior to actually going to learn, brush up on our defensive tactic skills. But we incorporate all of those tools training-wise every year. And, in our SWAT team, we have a lot of members from our agency and Bemidji Police Department that are on the SWAT team, and they get additional training in some of those same things. So there's quite a bit of training that goes involved in that. One of the bills we actually testified on was, we didn't testify on this one yet because it hasn't gone before, but back in, I want to say it was like 2015 or 16, the legislature imposed additional training on law enforcement, and rightfully so. It has to do with de-escalation, more cultural diversity, some of those aspects. And there's 16 additional hours that we have to attend. In that process, the legislature provided training reimbursement money.
Wow.
Well, to the tune of about $900 per officer. So you do the training, and at the end of in every June, Jarrett submits a training roster to the Minnesota Post Board, and we get reimbursed $900 for that training for every deputy in our agency. Mike Maston gets it for the City of Bemidji Police Department. Any Minnesota peace officer that has to deal with that gets that reimbursement.
Let me guess, they took it away.
Every 2 years, we have to go back and ask for that money. And every year, it's a fight. Last year, they cut some of that funding. And now this year, they're talking about cutting it down to $87 per
They're
deputy.
taking away a zero?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem quite right.
And we're frustrated with it because
Well, we're paying for it then.
This is, again, the state of Minnesota mandating this and then not providing the funding for it. So that then has to fall on the taxpayer. Well, we only have so much taxpayers' dollars in Beltrami County, right? We can't tax ourselves out of existence. We don't have enough tax base for that. So what suffers? Well, my budget will suffer. So if I have to do this training, that means something else is getting cut.
Right.
Because I can't afford to do everything that you're asking me to do and not have the training funds to do it.
Well, and the other part is it's not a chicken before the egg. You guys usually like, hey, we need more of this because this is a new kind of crime, right?
Yeah.
And then I just remember growing up in the 80s, you respected law enforcement. You wouldn't challenge them. And even criminals didn't push the envelope because it was a gun that would stop you.
And that's what they had.
Right? And now we're like, we want less lethal things. And so I get it. I'm not opposed to it, but it's created more expense, more time.
Correct.
More training.
Yep.
And apparently criminals that, what would you say, are very competent?
You have that, but you also have a society that has emboldened them for the last 10, 15 years as well. And that's what's frustrating is you have recourse with, if we have contact with you and you don't agree with the contact, there's recourse, but it's not on the street. It is in the court, or, your ability to protest the contact that you had with law enforcement shouldn't be at the time of. Now, we will listen to...
As you're robbing the bank is not the time to say, no, you can't arrest me.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I was getting to is like, if there's probable cause that exists, the state has given us the authority, and it's a huge responsibility. We don't take that authority lightly to take away someone's civil liberties temporarily because you're a danger to either someone else or yourself, and or you've committed some kind of crime. We don't arrest on petty offenses. We don't, you don't go to jail for a speeding ticket. You don't go to jail for
Right.
a simple shoplifting.
Well, the warrant you have long before you got pulled over
Correct.
for speeding.
Correct.
And- Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's an order imposed by a judge who has much more clout than I do. When they say that person didn't show up for court or they're not,
get 'em.
Yep, go get them. I can't ignore that. That's not a decision. I would be put in jail if the judge found out I ignored his orders.
And protesting, how much if we said, hey, you can't protest in front of Paul and Babe, the new protesting area, and this is for everybody, is now by the sanitation plant. Do you think it would change the amount of protests?
Government can dictate time, place, and manner of a protest. We don't like to get into that unless there's something that's going on that it would obstruct commerce. People in today's society, we've seen this before where people would block roadways, they would block sidewalks, they would block entrances to buildings as a means of protesting. And we're all for people's having their First Amendment rights. But you can't do it in such a manner that would be detrimental to a business, right? That's why a lot of businesses say, well, they're protesting out in front of my store and people don't want to come in here. That can be then moved. Like we can order that as an unlawful assembly and you have to move your protest somewhere else. Typically, the city of Bemidji has, you apply for a permit for some kind of an event that you want to do. That gives city government and its law enforcement the ability to plan and help protect those individuals that are planning to do that protest. Because there are going to be people that are opposed to whatever. I mean, that's our country, right? Everybody doesn't get along.
Protest the protest.
Yeah, you're going to. And it happens all over the place, where peaceful protests turn into non-peaceful events because some agitators show up and they just want to create havoc for everybody involved. And that happens, it happens here. It happens in the Twin Cities.
It's just frustrating that, this community has Paul and Babe as a feature, as a tourism, and then that's where protesting is. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be protesting. Just saying, can you imagine, come over here, you're on vacation from Pennsylvania, you drove on to, we're going to see Paul and Babe, and you're on your vacation trying to enjoy. It's just, what do they say? They're like, what the heck's wrong with this town? We should have a protest parking lot.
Well,
You can go
Not
protest
there.
at the Sanford Center. Nobody would see you there.
that would probably not be something that an organizer would want to do because they want to be visible.
Visible, yes.
Yeah.
How many times in your years of law enforcement have you used your gun versus a taser versus rubber bullets versus everything else?
When I will tell you this, rubber bullets, we've seen it used a handful of times. And when I say rubber bullets, I'm not just specifically speaking about rubber bullets. We have all kinds of different
Non-lethal
stuff. Non-lethal projectiles. Very rare. So I will tell you this: non-lethal projectiles fall into the same category as a billy club or a baton. To hit somebody with that, you have to be probably defending yourself or defending somebody else, and maybe the gun is not the next option. It's a pretty high level of force. Hitting somebody in a sensitive area would constitute deadly force. You hit somebody in the head, in the neck, those kinds of things. And that can happen in a fight, right? So
Sure.
It's not something that it's one of our first applications just because. Flexible baton rounds they fall into that same, that same set of tools. And it's just the ability to reach out and touch someone further away than what they are. Someone's throwing rocks at law enforcement or someone else. That has the potential to be deadly force. You get hit in the head with a rock. I mean, that's the same kind of application. So, taser. When the taser first came out, and I want to say it was probably like 2002, 2003. First generation. I mean, there were stun guns, but the deployable
stun guns.
the deployable tasers when they first came out, those things got used a lot right away. And then people are more frequent flyers that, well, I don't like that so much. So I'm not when the cops say I'm going to tase you, do this or else, I'd stop doing what I'm doing because I don't want to get tased again. Because I've been tased. I've been tased a few times.
Intentionally?
Once in training intentionally. I will never do that again.
Oh, you have the option? I thought like you guys had to do it. And
No.
then I was like, is there like okay, you've been tased 4 times in your career. That's enough.
Some agencies require it. We do not. We have a number of trainers that all of our trainers have to do it. But when you get tased with the taser, it hurts.
Oh,
Like
man.
it's not fun. It's not pleasant. But it's not life-threatening either. Don't use the taser nearly as much as we used to. Just because word gets around that it's not a fun. Pepper spray, it's a tool. It's a messy tool because there's consequences for yourself when you use it. You get it back on you just like the person does. So it's one of those things we don't particularly like to use if we don't have to. My firearm, I've been in a couple of, in 25 years, I've been in a couple of situations where I've been shot at. Personally not have had to shoot back yet. I could have, given the right opportunity. There was an incident here a number of years back where it was post George Floyd, where I had someone who was shooting at us. I was at a great distance. I probably could have taken a shot, and I chose not to, for nothing other than the mere thought in my mind, am I going to be held, to what degree am I going to be held liable? What degree is my department, my community, my family going to be held liable for this incident? And that really, to this day, it still bothers me.
Wow.
And I know we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit here, but we don't like to use force. If we can have all of our contacts being that of which you and I have a civilized conversation, we come to an agreement, and either we both walk away or I walk away with you in handcuffs, and then you protest your matter in front of a judge, that's the preference.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's YouTube videos on law enforcement officers with that baton, and there's a runner, and them throwing it at their legs, and they
Oh, you face plant big time.
like, dang, they're good at that baton.
That's a double-edged sword, though. You're throwing them a weapon, and if it doesn't work, and 9 times out of 10, I'd say 99 times out of 100, it's not going to work.
Really?
And now they have a weapon
True.
that you just gave them.
Does current law enforcement still carry a baton?
We do. I carry one, even on my duty belt.
Really?
I do. I've used it to break out windows of vehicles that have rolled over where people are trapped. I've used it for smashing out the window of a house that I needed to get into a room. I've seen one person get hit with a baton. It wasn't me, but I watched one of our deputies hit somebody with a baton who was under the influence of some type of narcotic, and it had zero effect.
Wow. Well, thank you for what you do, you and the crew down there at the Law Enforcement Center.
You have
Appreciate
fun
you
in
guys.
Kelliher tomorrow.
Yeah, you guys have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks for stopping by.